They say your life flashes before your eyes when you're dying. Mine just kept replaying the sight of my baby daddy doing a TikTok dance on the shore while I drowned. Classy. The water was colder than I expected. Colder than Dominic's heart when he'd looked at me this morning and said, "The council has decided." Like I was a problem to be solved instead of the woman carrying his child. My hands were still bound behind my back with silver-threaded rope that burned against my wrists. 8 months pregnant, wearing my rattiest sports bra and the underwear with the broken elastic, because naturally, when your pack drags you out of bed at dawn to execute you, you don't get time to pick a cute outfit. The universe had a sick sense of humor. I kicked toward the surface, but my legs were heavy, useless. The baby pressed against my lungs, stealing what little air I had left. Above me, distorted through the rippling water, I could see them all standing on the shore like they were watching a summer barbecue instead of a murder. Dominic stood at the center, his alpha authority radiating even from here. Tall, broad-shouldered, with that stupid perfectly groomed beard he spent more time on than he'd ever spent listening to me. Jessica was wrapped around his arm like a designer accessory, her phone held high. Recording this. Actually recording my death for their social media. I'd heard her earlier, before they threw me in. This is going to get so many views. #PackJustice #AlphaLife. My chest burned. Not just from the lack of oxygen, but from the rage that had nowhere to go except inward. The baby kicked weakly, and I wanted to scream. Not my baby. Not this innocent life that had done nothing wrong except exist. Tainted, Dominic had declared an hour ago, standing in the pack hall with the morning sun behind him like he was some kind of righteous deity. The child is tainted. The bloodline must remain pure. Pure. Because I'd made the mistake of talking to a vampire at a treaty meeting. Because someone had seen us laughing together and decided that was evidence enough. Never mind that nothing happened. Never mind that I'd been faithful, stupid, desperately faithful to a man who was already planning his next conquest. The taint wasn't the baby. It was me. Being too plain, too ordinary, too omega for an alpha who wanted a mate as shiny as his social media feed. My lungs screamed. Darkness crept in from the edges of my vision. At least I won't have to see his stupid face anymore, I thought. At least there's that. Then something grabbed me. A hand, pale as moonlight, locked around my wrist and yanked. Hard. I broke the surface gasping, choking, lake water burning up through my nose. The world was too bright, too loud. Someone was screaming, me, I realized. I was screaming. Breathe, a voice commanded. Male, cold, utterly devoid of sympathy. I was on the muddy shore, somehow, 20 feet from where I'd been drowning. My vision cleared slowly. A man crouched beside me. No, not a man. Nothing human moved that still, that perfectly controlled. His hair was dark, almost black, falling across a face that looked carved from marble. Beautiful in the way poisonous things were beautiful. And his eyes, God, his eyes were dead. Not cruel, not angry. Just, empty. Like looking into a void. Vampire. You smell like wet dog and poor life choices, he said, his voice flat, clinical. He was examining me the way someone might examine an interesting insect. I coughed up more lake water. And you smell like a hot topic threw up on a cemetery. We all have problems. His eyebrow twitched. Barely. Like he was surprised I could form words. Behind us, I heard Dominic's roar. Lord Drake. This is pack business. Ancient law forbids. Ancient law, the vampire, Lord Drake, apparently, interrupted without looking away from me, is a suggestion I've grown tired of following. He stood in one fluid movement, placing himself between me and the pack. I struggled to sit up, my bound hands making it nearly impossible. Everything hurt. The baby wasn't moving. Please, please move. You violated treaty, Dominic snarled, but there was fear underneath the anger. Good. Let him be afraid for once. Yes, Drake said simply. And? The silence stretched. No one moved. Vampires were faster than wolves, stronger, and everyone here knew it. Drake stood alone against an entire pack, and he looked about as concerned as someone waiting for paint to dry. Why? I whispered. My voice was wrecked, raw from screaming and drowning. Why help me? He glanced down at me then, those dead eyes sweeping over my swollen belly, my bound wrists, my pathetic appearance. Curiosity. Your pack is quite eager to kill pregnant women. I wondered why. Not kindness. Not mercy. Curiosity. Somehow that was more terrifying than anything else. The baby still wasn't moving. Panic clawed up my throat. I tried to feel for the usual flutter, the reassuring pressure. Nothing. No, no, no. Drake's head tilted. Then his expression changed, not to emotion, exactly, but to something sharper. More focused. The heartbeat is failing. He could hear it. Could hear what I could only feel. Please, I heard myself say. Begging a vampire. My mother would be so proud. Please, I don't care what happens to me, but... Be silent, he commanded. Not unkind. Just matter of fact. Then he did something I didn't expect. Something that made Jessica actually drop her phone and made Dominic take a step back. Drake bit his own wrist. Fangs sinking into pale flesh, dark blood welling up immediately. The scent hit me, copper and night-blooming flowers and something ancient that made my wolf instinct scream in confusion. This will corrupt the pregnancy, he said, crouching beside me again. The child will be changed. Neither fully wolf, nor fully anything else. It's forbidden for reasons your simple pack probably doesn't even remember. He held his bleeding wrist near my mouth. But it will live. Choose. You can't. Dominic lunged forward. 3 of Drake's kind materialized from the shadows. I hadn't even known they were there, and suddenly Dominic was on the ground, held down by vampires who'd moved too fast to track. My choice. My baby. My baby who was dying because my pack valued purity over life. I opened my mouth. Drake pressed his wrist to my lips, and his blood poured onto my tongue. It tasted like darkness and starlight and every forbidden thing I'd ever wanted but been too afraid to reach for. It burned going down, burned like silver and ice and transformation. The baby kicked. Hard. I gasped against Drake's wrist, tears streaming down my face. Alive. Still alive. Interesting, Drake murmured, pulling his arm back. The wound was already healing. Very interesting indeed. My body felt strange. Wrong. The baby was moving, yes, but differently now. Stronger. And something else, something that made my wolf whimper in confusion and terror. What did you do? I whispered. Violated several ancient laws, declared war on your pack by proxy, and possibly doomed your child to a very complicated existence. Drake stood, brushing mud off his coat like he'd just had a mildly interesting afternoon. You're welcome. He turned to Dominic, who was still pinned to the ground. This woman and her child are under my protection now. Harm them, and I'll paint this lake red with pack blood. Are we clear? Dominic's face was purple with rage. The council can take their complaints to me directly. I do enjoy visitors. Drake smiled then, and it was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. All teeth and promise of violence. Just knock first. I'm civilized. Then he was crouching beside me again, those dead eyes studying my face. Can you walk, little wolf? I don't think so. Pity. He scooped me up like I weighed nothing, and I hated how safe I felt in arms that should have been my enemy. You really do smell terrible. You really don't give a damn about anyone, do you? Not particularly, no. He started walking away from the lake, away from my pack, away from everything I'd ever known. But I am curious. And you, little wolf, with your forbidden child and your terrible taste in males, are the most interesting thing to happen to me in a century. The baby kicked again, harder than before. Different than before. What had I just allowed him to do? Chapter 2. I woke up in a bed that probably cost more than my entire life, staring at a ceiling painted with scenes of angels falling into darkness. Subtle. The room around me looked like Dracula had gone through an interior design phase, all dark velvet and ornate furniture that screamed, "I have money and emotional damage." Heavy curtains blocked out what I assumed was sunlight, though a soft glow from strategically placed lamps kept the space from being completely depressing. My hands were free. The silver burns on my wrists had been treated with something that smelled medicinal and felt cool against my skin. I was wearing a silk nightgown that definitely wasn't mine, and for one horrifying moment I wondered who'd changed me. Then I decided I had bigger problems. The baby was moving. Thank God. But the movements felt different, stronger, more deliberate. Like the baby was doing somersaults instead of the usual gentle flutter. My hand went to my belly, and I swear I felt a response, like a little hand pressing back from the inside. "You're awake." I nearly jumped out of my skin. A man stood in the doorway, tall, broad-shouldered, with silver hair pulled back in a ponytail and an expression that suggested I was a minor inconvenience. Vampire. Obviously. They all had that same predatory stillness. "Who are you?" I croaked. My throat still hurt from the drowning. "Victor." Lord Drake, second in command. He moved into the room with that unnatural grace they all had. "You've been asleep for 18 hours. The blood exchange took more out of you than expected." "Where am I?" "Drake Manor. 30 miles north of your former pack territory." He said former like it was already decided. "You're in blood debt to Lord Drake. Do you understand what that means?" I struggled to sit up, the silk sheets sliding around me. So I escaped one controlling alpha just to end up with a vampire sugar daddy? Great. This is exactly how I pictured my life going. Victor's mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Almost. Lord Drake is many things. A sugar daddy is not one of them. Then what do you call someone who swoops in, saves you, and expects you to owe them? Smart. The door opened wider, and Cashin Drake walked in like he owned the place. Which, I supposed, he did. He looked exactly as I remembered, pale, beautiful, and utterly devoid of warmth. He wore all black, because apparently vampires had a dress code, and his dark eyes swept over me with that same clinical detachment. "You're awake," he said. Not a question. Not concerned. Just a statement of fact. "I'm starting to think that's a bad thing," I muttered. "Probably." He moved to the window, pulling back the curtain slightly. Evening, not morning. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold. "We should discuss your situation." "My situation? You mean the part where you fed me vampire blood and now my baby feels like it's training for the Olympics?" "That, and the fact that you're now under my protection, which means you're also my problem." He turned to face me. "I didn't save you out of kindness, little wolf. I saved you because werewolves drowning pregnant omegas makes me look civilized by comparison. Good publicity. The casual cruelty of it should have hurt more. Instead, I just felt numb. So what, I'm a PR stunt? Essentially." He sat in a chair near the bed, crossing one leg over the other. "The vampire court wants you dead. They view you as an abomination, a wolf carrying a corrupted child in vampire territory. My protection is the only thing keeping you alive." How generous. "It comes with conditions." His dead eyes fixed on mine. "You'll be my pet Omega. Paraded before the court to demonstrate vampire superiority over your barbaric pack structure. You'll dress appropriately, behave appropriately, and play the role I assign you." I stared at him. "I'm not your daddy," he continued, his voice dropping lower. Then he paused, letting the silence stretch. I'm far more dangerous. The threat was clear. And somehow, I believed him more than I'd ever believed Dominic's promises. What if I refuse? Then I'll return you to Blackwater Lake and let your pack finish what they started. He said it without emotion, like he was discussing the weather. Your choice. No choice at all, really. Victor cleared his throat. There's a dress code for breakfast. And blood wine tastings on Tuesdays. Blood wine tastings? I interrupted. You're kidding. Vampires are pretentious snobs, Victor said flatly. You'll learn. The next morning, evening, whatever, I discovered he wasn't joking. I was expected at breakfast, which happened at sunset, and apparently there were rules. Victor had left a selection of elegant dresses in my room. I looked at them, looked at the fluffy snuggie I'd found in the closet. Why did a vampire castle have a snuggie? And made my choice. The dining room went silent when I walked in wearing bright purple fleece with a pizza pattern on it. What, Cashin said slowly, are you wearing? Breakfast attire. I waddled to the table, 8 months pregnant and zero dignity left, and sat down. It's comfortable. Sue me. A female vampire across the table actually gasped. Victor looked like he was trying not to laugh. Cashin's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those dead eyes. Amusement? Annoyance? Hard to tell. You're starting a scandal, Victor murmured. Good. I contain multitudes. But the humor faded as the day went on. The baby's movements were getting stranger. Sometimes it felt normal. Sometimes it felt like something else was moving inside me. Something that definitely wasn't fully Wolf. I was in the library that evening when Cashin found me, curled up in a chair, one hand on my belly. It's changing, I whispered. I can feel it. What did you do to my baby? He sat across from me, studying my face. I kept it alive. The rest is biology taking its course. It feels wrong. It's different. Different isn't wrong. He leaned forward slightly. Would you rather it be dead and pure, or alive and complicated? I hated that he was right. He pulled out a tablet then, sliding it across to me. This arrived this morning. I thought you should see it. I looked at the screen. Bank transfer records. Messages. My stomach dropped as I read through them. Dominic had sold my location. Sold me. To rogue wolves, the ones who hunted omegas for sport. $50,000 and a jet ski. A damn jet ski. He really valued you, Cashin observed dryly. I stared at the screen, something breaking inside me. I let that man raw dog me and he values me less than a watercraft. I have terrible taste. Catastrophically bad taste, Cashin agreed. But now you're here. With me. Who only wants to use you for political theater. It's practically a step up. I should have cried. Should have raged. Instead, I started laughing. Hysterical, broken laughter that made my ribs hurt and the baby kick in protest. Cashin watched me like I was a fascinating experiment. Which, I supposed, I was. Welcome to Drake Manor, Victor said from the doorway. It's terrible here. But at least we have Wi-Fi. Chapter 3. The pain hit like a freight train at 3 in the morning. I'd been having contractions for hours, uncomfortable, manageable things I'd convinced myself were just Braxton Hicks. But when I woke up feeling like my body was being torn apart from the inside, I knew. This was it. Victor. I screamed, stumbling out of bed. Victor. He materialized in my doorway within seconds, took one look at me clutching my belly, and his perpetually annoyed expression shifted to something close to panic. Oh hell. Oh bloody hell. Get Cashin. He's in council. I don't care if he's meeting with God himself. Get him now. 10 minutes later, I was in a room that looked more like a gothic spa than a delivery room, surrounded by vampire healers who kept exchanging terrified glances. "We don't do this," one of them muttered, wringing her hands. "We don't birth. We haven't dealt with live births in centuries." "Well, figure it out." I screamed as another contraction ripped through me. Cashin appeared in the doorway, still in his formal council attire, looking severely put out. "This is highly inconvenient timing." I grabbed his hand and squeezed with everything I had. Something cracked. He actually flinched. "You did this," I snarled through gritted teeth. "Your blood. Your problem. You're staying." His eyes narrowed, but he didn't pull away. Even as I felt more bones crack under my grip. "You're stronger than you should be." "Good." The contractions came faster, harder. My wolf was rising, panicking, trying to protect me the only way she knew how, by shifting. I felt my bones beginning to crack, fur rippling under my skin. "No," Cashin commanded, his free hand gripping my shoulder. "You shift now, you'll kill them both." "I can't control it." "Then I'll control it for you." His power slammed into me, cold, ancient, absolute. It forced my wolf down, held her there even as she howled and thrashed. The sensation was intimate, invasive, like he was inside my very bones. I hated it. I needed it. Another healer rushed forward. "The first one is coming." The pain was beyond description. Beyond anything I'd imagined. I screamed words I didn't know I knew, in languages I didn't speak. And between the contractions, when I could form coherent thoughts, "I'm going to find Dominic and shove that jet ski up his." "Breathe," Cashin ordered. "I'll shove one up yours too." His mouth twitched. Actually twitched. Almost a smile. Then the first baby came, and everything else disappeared. The healer caught her, a girl, tiny and perfect, with silver markings across her skin like wolf fur even in human form. She wailed, loud and strong. "Luna," I gasped. The name came from somewhere deep inside me. Her name is Luna. But there wasn't time to rest. The second baby was coming, and something was wrong. I could feel it. The pain was different, sharper, like something with claws was tearing its way out. My wolf surged again, violent and terrified. Cashin's power clamped down harder, and suddenly he was on the bed with me, behind me, his arms wrapped around my body to physically hold me together as I tried to tear myself apart. It was brutal. Bloody. His chest pressed against my back, his breath cold against my neck, his hands iron bands across my stomach as bone and muscle and something other fought beneath my skin. "Stay with me," he commanded in my ear. "Don't you dare leave." The second baby emerged with a sound that made every vampire in the room step back. Not a cry. A shriek that held something ancient and hungry. The healer caught him, another girl, I realized distantly, and the room went absolutely silent. She was smaller than Luna. Paler. And when she opened her eyes, they glowed red. Tiny fangs, barely visible, pressed against her bottom lip. "That's not possible," someone whispered. Cashin went very, very still behind me. Then he moved, carefully extracting himself and coming around to look at the baby. His face was blank, but I'd learned to read the subtle signs, the slight tension in his jaw, the way his hands curled into fists. "Explain," he said, his voice deadly calm. "Now." The head healer was shaking. My lord, I cannot. This child she's vampire and wolf. It's forbidden. It's impossible." "Clearly not impossible," Victor said from the doorway, staring at the baby. "She's right there. Being very possible. Very loud. Very, oh gods, I need a drink. Several drinks. I'm drinking the entire blood cellar." My arms were empty. I tried to sit up, panic overriding exhaustion. "Give her to me." The healer hesitated. "Give her to me." Cashin took the baby from the healer and brought her to me himself. Placed her in my arms next to Luna. This impossible child, stopped shrieking immediately. Her red eyes focused on my face, and something in my chest cracked open. "Nix," I whispered. "Her name is Nix." "Sarah," Cashin said quietly. Too quietly. My blood couldn't have done this alone. "When did we first meet?" I looked up at him, exhausted and confused. "At the lake." "You know that." "Before the lake." "Think." And suddenly, I remembered. 6 months ago. Rogues attacking me in the woods. A pale figure emerging from the shadows, killing them before they could touch me. Forcing me to drink something. "Your blood," I whispered. "You gave me your blood when the rogues attacked. You said it would heal the wounds." "My bloodline is old," he said softly. "Ancient. More potent than most. It seems it did more than heal." The doors slammed open. Members of the Vampire Council swept in, led by a woman in crimson robes whose expression was pure disgust. "We felt it," she announced. "The abomination. It must be destroyed immediately." I clutched both babies to my chest. "Try it. This is not your choice, Wolf." She advanced, and 3 other council members moved with her. "That creature threatens the balance." Cashin was suddenly between us, and the temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. "Touch either child, and I'll burn this court to ash." The woman stopped. "You would declare war over a mongrel spawn?" "I would declare war over many things. This happens to be one of them." His voice was soft, terrifying. "Both children are mine now. I claim them as my bloodline. Try to take them, and learn exactly why our enemies don't say my name out loud." The room was silent. Even the babies had gone quiet, like they sensed the danger. "You can't claim them," I said, my voice hoarse. I didn't agree to this. He turned to look at me, and something in his expression made my breath catch. "You drank my blood. Twice. You bear my mark whether you wanted it or not. Those children are mine now. Legally." He moved closer, leaning down until his face was inches from mine. "Politically." His voice dropped to a whisper only I could hear. "And soon, personally." "What does that mean?" I demanded. "It means," he said, straightening up and addressing the council without looking away from me, "that anyone who harms these children harms my house. My bloodline. And I have a very long memory for grievances." The woman in crimson stared at him, then at me, then at the impossible baby in my arms. Finally, she turned and swept from the room, the other council members following. Victor was still in the doorway. "Well," he said conversationally, "this is fine. Everything is fine. We're all going to die horribly, but at least the babies are cute." Luna yawned. Nix made a small sound that might have been contentment or might have been hunger. I looked down at them, one marked with silver, one with crimson eyes, and felt my entire world shift. Cashin was still watching me with those dead eyes that somehow seemed less dead than before. "You can't just claim my children," I said weakly. "I already did," he replied. "Welcome to immortal politics, little wolf. Nothing is ever simple here." Chapter 4. 6 months of living in a vampire castle with 2 hybrid babies and an emotionally constipated ancient vampire had taught me several things. 1. Vampires were surprisingly good at parenting. 2. I had terrible, horrible, no good taste in men. 3. Watching Cashin Drake change a diaper while wearing a $3,000 suit should not be attractive. And yet. It was 3 in the morning, again, and I'd woken to the sound of Nix crying. By the time I'd dragged myself out of bed, Cashin was already in the nursery, holding her against his shoulder while humming something low and melodic. Romanian, maybe. Something old. Luna was awake too, watching from her crib with those wise silver eyes. She was always watching, always aware. Sometimes too aware for a 6-month-old. "Go back to sleep," Cashin said without turning around. "I have this. You need to sleep too." I don't sleep much. He swayed gently, and Nix's cries quieted to whimpers. And you look exhausted. I hated that he was right. I hated that he was competent. I hated the way my heart did stupid things when I watched him with our daughters. Stop being good at this, I muttered. His mouth curved slightly. Almost a smile. Would you prefer I be terrible at childcare? Yes. It would make things easier. I left before I could do something stupid, like notice how gentle his hands were, or how his voice softened when he sang. Back in my room, I stared at the ceiling and had a firm conversation with myself. I will not be attracted to the emotionally unavailable vampire who threatens people before breakfast, I whispered fiercely to the darkness. I will not develop feelings for someone who literally claims to own me. I have standards. My wolf, unhelpfully, sent back a wave of contentment and interest. You're a traitor, I told her. By morning, evening, vampire schedule, I'd convinced myself I was fine. Completely fine. Until breakfast, when Cashin made a decision about the twins' feeding schedule without consulting me. Excuse me? I said, my fork clattering to the plate. You can't just decide that. I already did. He didn't look up from the tablet he was reading. The schedule was inefficient. I optimized it. They're babies, not a corporate merger. The principle is the same. I wanted to throw something at his perfect, infuriating face. You can't control me. He finally looked up, those dark eyes meeting mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. I already do, little wolf. Every decision you make happens within parameters I've set. Every freedom you have exists because I allow it. He leaned forward slightly. You're only angry because you're starting to like it. I left the table before I proved him right by either hitting him or kissing him. I wasn't sure which would be worse. Victor found me in the library an hour later, stress-eating cookies while Luna practiced her newly discovered ability to make the castle guards shift involuntarily. 3 wolves were currently pacing the hallway outside, confused and embarrassed. Your daughter is terrorizing the staff, Victor said. She's 6 months old. She doesn't know what she's doing. She looked me dead in the eye and made me howl. I don't have a wolf form, Sarah. She made me, a vampire, howl. He sat down heavily. I've killed men for less than what these children put me through. As if summoned by the complaint, Nyx shadow walked, literally stepped through shadows, directly into Victor's lap. Her eyes were glowing red, and she was giggling. Where did she come from? I demanded. The blood cellar. Victor held her at arm's length. She's drunk. A 6-month-old vampire hybrid is drunk on aged blood. This is my life now. I took Nyx, who burped and giggled again. She smelled like wine and mischief. How did she even get down there? She can move through shadows. We're still figuring out what else she can do. Victor rubbed his temples. Luna controls wolves. Nyx defies physics. I need a vacation. A long vacation. Somewhere without children. The letter arrived during Nyx's nap time. Delivered by a nervous wolf messenger who looked ready to bolt. Victor brought it to me, his expression carefully neutral. From your former alpha, he said. I recognized Dominic's handwriting immediately. My stomach turned. Sarah. I made a mistake, baby. A terrible mistake. That jet ski means nothing. You mean everything. The pack misses you. I miss you. Come home. We can work this out. The twins belong with their real family. I read it twice, then handed it to Victor. He sent 4 of these now. Each one more pathetic than the last. He's also increasing patrols near our borders, Victor said quietly. Cashin thinks he's planning something. Let him plan. I'm not going back. But my hands were shaking. Because part of me, the stupid, broken part, wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe someone could actually want me back. That night, everything changed. Cashin didn't come to dinner. Didn't come to help with the evening routine. By midnight, I was worried enough to go looking for him. I found him in his chambers, collapsed on the floor. Cashin. I dropped to my knees beside him. His skin was gray, covered in sweat. Black veins were spreading across his neck, his arms. What happened? Poison, he gasped. Werewolf venom. Concentrated. How? Who? Don't know. His eyes were unfocused. Been slow. Weeks, maybe. Werewolf venom was lethal to vampires. Everyone knew that. I need to get the healers. His hand shot out, gripping my wrist. No time. They can't help. His eyes found mine. But you can. I don't understand. Omega healing. Your wolf blood can counteract it. He pulled me closer. But you have to give it willingly. Blood exchange. Deep blood exchange. My heart was hammering. How deep? Enough to bond us. His voice was fading. Might create something permanent. Something that shouldn't exist between species. I should have hesitated. Should have thought it through. Instead, I bit my own wrist and pressed it to his mouth. Drink. He drank like a dying man, and maybe he was. His fangs sank into my wrist, and the sensation shot through me like lightning. Not pain, something else. Something that made my wolf howl in recognition. Then he bit his own wrist and pressed it to my lips. Your turn. The blood exchange was intense. Overwhelming. Our wolves, his vampire nature and my omega wolf, twined together in ways that felt ancient, inevitable. The room spun. I felt him everywhere, inside my mind, my heart, my very soul. You're mine, he whispered against my hair, delirious with venom and blood loss. You've always been mine. Even drowning couldn't keep you from me. I would have followed you into death. Pulled you back from hell itself. My wolf was singing. Actually singing. And underneath the fear and the chaos and the impossibility of it all, I felt something snap into place. Something that felt like coming home. A mate bond. I was developing a mate bond with a vampire. Something that shouldn't exist. Something impossible. Just like our daughters. When the healers finally arrived, Cashin was stable, the black veins receding. But he wouldn't let go of my hand. And I couldn't bring myself to pull away. Victor stood in the doorway, took one look at us, and sighed. Well. This complicates things. That was the understatement of the century. Chapter 5. The vampire court ceremony was supposed to be simple. A formal presentation of the twins to the assembled lords and ladies. A political move to solidify Cashin's claim and show unity. It lasted exactly 7 minutes before everything went to hell. I was standing on the dais in a dress that cost more than a car, holding Luna while Cashin held Nyx. The court watched with expressions ranging from fascination to barely concealed disgust. Victor stood to Cashin's right, as he always did. Steady. Reliable. Then the chandelier exploded. Glass rained down. Someone screamed. And suddenly there were figures in black dropping from the ceiling, moving too fast to be human. Vampires. Assassins targeting my babies. I didn't think. Didn't hesitate. My wolf surged forward and I let her. The shift was violent, painful, and I didn't care. Luna was in my arms 1 second, tucked safely against the wall the next. Then I was tearing into the first assassin with everything I had. Blood sprayed. Hot and copper sweet. My teeth found a throat and ripped. The vampire turned to ash. I was already moving to the next one. Somewhere distantly, I heard Cashin fighting. Heard the screams of the court as they fled or joined the battle. But all I could focus on was the assassin reaching for Nyx. I hit him like a freight train. We went down together, and I felt his ribs crack under my claws. Then his throat was in my jaws and I twisted, hard. More ash. When the violence finally stopped, I was standing in the center of the hall, covered in blood and ash, my wolf form heaving with breath. Luna and Nyx were crying but safe. Alive. I shifted back slowly, painfully. Someone threw a cloak over my naked, blood-soaked body. I looked up and met Cashin's eyes. He was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. Like I was something precious and terrifying all at once. His expression was still neutral, controlled, but something burned in his eyes that made my breath catch. "Well," he said softly. "That was impressive." Then his gaze shifted. Locked on something behind me. His expression went cold. Dead. I turned. Victor stood there, a silver blade in his hand. The kind of blade meant for killing hybrids. "Victor?" My voice sounded small. "Lost. I'm sorry, Sarah." And he actually looked sorry. Genuinely pained. But they can't be allowed to live. The prophecy. He moved faster than I could track. But Cashin was faster. One moment Victor was lunging toward the twins. The next, Cashin had him by the throat, lifted off the ground. "Explain," Cashin said, his voice utterly emotionless. Quickly. Victor's face was turning blue. The purists. Dominic, they knew. Before conception. They wanted the hybrids. The prophecy says they'll either rule all supernatural species, or end them. He gasped, struggling. "I couldn't let them end our world, Cashin. You have to understand." "I understand perfectly." Cashin's grip tightened. "You betrayed me. You targeted my children. My mate. Your mate." Victor's eyes went wide. "You actually bonded with her? You fool. You've doomed us all." The snap was loud in the silent hall. Victor's body went limp. Cashin dropped him without ceremony, watching as his oldest friend's body turned to ash. He didn't look sad. Didn't look angry. Didn't look like anything at all. I stood there, holding both twins now, watching the vampire I was bonded to execute his best friend with the same emotion he'd used to swat a fly. And for the first time, I truly understood what he was. Not my protector. Not my savior. A predator. Ancient, lethal, and absolutely without mercy. "Cashin," I whispered. He turned to me, and just like that, the coldness was gone. Replaced by something warmer. More human. "Are you hurt?" "No. But." "Then we're leaving." He crossed to me, placed a hand on my back. "Now." The ride back to the manor was silent. The twins fell asleep in their car seats, exhausted from crying. I stared out the window, still covered in blood, still processing what I'd seen. Back at the manor, after the twins were settled and I'd showered away the blood and ash, I found myself in the kitchen at 2 a.m, stress eating an entire chocolate cake straight from the box. I just wanted a normal life, I ranted to the empty room, shoving another forkful in my mouth. Maybe a Costco membership. A garden. Not prophecies about my children ending the world. Costco memberships are overrated. I jumped. Cashin stood in the doorway, watching me with something that might have been amusement. "Stop doing that." The appearing from nowhere thing. "I live here. I'm allowed to be in my own kitchen." He moved closer, eyeing the demolished cake. "Feeling better?" "No." "Yes." "I don't know." I set the fork down. "You killed Victor." "Yes." "Your oldest friend." "Yes." "And you felt nothing." He was quiet for a moment. I felt rage. But rage doesn't serve anyone. Action does. He leaned against the counter. "He tried to kill our children." There was only one response to that. "Our children." He kept saying that. Like it was fact. The prophecy, I said. What else do you know? Very little. It's ancient. Most think it's myth. His jaw tightened. But if Dominic and the purists believe it enough to orchestrate this, we have bigger problems than I thought. You're leaving. I don't know how I knew, but I did. The summit. You're still going. I have to. The Vampire Council will be in chaos after tonight. If I don't show strength. How long? 3 days. Maybe 4. Panic clawed up my throat. 3 days. Alone. With assassins and purists and a prophecy hanging over us. I can't. He was suddenly in front of me, crowding me back against the counter. His hands on either side of me, caging me in. You think I'd leave you unprotected? You're mine, Sarah. My mate. My omega. My obsession. The last word was barely a whisper. Raw. Real. You executed your best friend tonight without blinking, I said, my voice shaking. How do I know you won't? Because you're not my friend. His eyes burned into mine. You're everything. The twins are everything. I would burn this entire world to ash before I'd let anything harm you. That's not healthy. I know. His hand came up, cupping my face. I'm not healthy. I'm possessive, controlling, and obsessive. I've waited centuries to feel anything, and now that I do, I'm not letting it go. This is toxic, I whispered. I know. Then he kissed me. Hard. Possessive. Desperate. His mouth claimed mine like he was trying to consume me, own me, mark me as his in every way that mattered. I kissed him back just as fiercely, my hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer even as my brain screamed that this was wrong, dangerous, impossible. The mate bond sang between us. My wolf howled in triumph. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, I rested my forehead against his chest. This is so toxic. I know. His hand tangled in my hair. Kiss me again anyway. So I did. Because apparently, I didn't just have terrible taste in men. I had catastrophic, world-ending, prophecy-fulfilling taste in men. And I was done pretending otherwise. Chapter 6. The attack came on the second night of Cashin's absence. I was in the nursery when the alarm sounded, a high-pitched wail that made both twins start crying. My wolf surged to attention, every instinct screaming danger. Sarah. A vampire guard burst through the door. Purist forces at the east gate. Wolves and sympathizers. They're demanding the hybrids. My heart stopped. Then started again, faster, harder. How many? At least 50. Maybe more. 50. Against a skeleton crew of guards because most of Cashin's forces had gone with him to the summit. I looked at Luna and Nyx, both wailing in their cribs. Looked at the guard's terrified face. And made a decision. Get the twins to the safe room. Now. I was already moving, grabbing weapons from the hidden panel Cashin had shown me. Silver daggers. A crossbow. I'm going to the courtyard. My lady, you can't. That's an order. My voice came out different. Commanding. Layered with power I didn't know I had. The guard's eyes went glassy, and he moved immediately to obey. Omega voice. But stronger than it should be. The courtyard was chaos. Wolves were pouring through a breach in the wall, and the vampire guards were falling back, outnumbered. I saw blood. Ash. Bodies. Stop. The word ripped out of me, amplified by power I didn't understand. Everything froze. Every wolf dropped to their knees, whimpering. But so did the vampires. All of them. Kneeling. Unable to move. I stood there, breathing hard, feeling the power flowing through me like electricity. Both species. I could command both species. You came to my home, I said softly, walking through the kneeling crowd. Threatened my children. My family. I stopped in front of a purist wolf, his eyes wide with terror. Big mistake. I used them ruthlessly after that. Commanded the wolves to fight each other. Made the purist sympathizers reveal their plans. Forced vampires who'd wavered in their loyalty to prove themselves. I was brutal. Efficient. And I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Sarah. That voice. God, that voice I'd once loved and now hated with every fiber of my being. Dominic strode through the breach, still looking like the alpha everyone admired. Strong. Handsome. Completely full of himself. Jessica wasn't with him. Probably filming from a safe distance. Baby, stop this. He held up his hands like he was approaching a wild animal. I can explain everything. Explain? I laughed, and it wasn't a nice sound. Explain how you tried to drown me? Or how you sold my location for $50,000 in water sports equipment? I was blackmailed. He actually had the audacity to look wounded. The purists threatened my family. My pack. I had no choice. You always have a choice. I still love you. He stepped closer, and several vampires growled. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. Come home. Bring the twins. We'll raise them properly, away from these bloodsuckers. I punched him. My fist connected with his perfect nose with a satisfying crunch. He staggered back, blood streaming. You sold me for a jet ski, Dominic. A jet ski. It was a really nice jet ski. I hit him again. The prophecy, he sputtered, hands over his bleeding nose. The prophecy says only the biological father can protect the hybrids from the coming darkness. I'm their father. I have to be there too. You're nothing. My voice was cold. Final. You're a weak, pathetic alpha who couldn't even drown me properly. You want to talk about fathers? Cashin is more of a father in 6 months than you could be in a lifetime. He's a vampire. A monster. And you're a coward who values jet skis over lives. I stepped closer, letting him see the predator I'd become. You were a placeholder, Dominic. A mistake. A cautionary tale I'll tell my daughters about men who aren't worth their time. His face twisted with rage. Those children are mine by blood. They're mine by choice. And they're Cashin's by bond, by blood, and by every moment he spent caring for them while you've been busy playing alpha on social media. He lunged at me then, shifting mid-leap. I was ready. My wolf rose to meet his, and we collided in a tangle of fur and fury. But I wasn't alone. The manor door burst open. Luna and Nyx. Impossible, they were supposed to be in the safe room, stood at the threshold. Luna's eyes were glowing silver. Nyx's were blazing red. Luna raised her tiny hands, and moonlight, actual, impossible moonlight, materialized in the courtyard. It formed into weapons, spears and swords of pure light that the vampire guards grabbed with expressions of awe and terror. Nyx opened her mouth and screamed. Shadow portals erupted across the courtyard. Dark, swirling voids that grabbed purist wolves and swallowed them whole. Their screams cut off instantly. Gone. Just, gone. The twins were 6 months old. And they were terrifying. Dominic shifted back, staring at them with pure horror. What are they? They're the future, I said quietly. And you're not part of it. He ran. Actually turned and ran like the coward he was, his remaining forces scattering after him. The battle was over in minutes after that. The vampires rallied with their moonlight weapons. The remaining purists surrendered or fled. Victory was ours. But I couldn't celebrate. Because my 6-month-old daughters had just demonstrated powers that shouldn't exist. I found them an hour later in the nursery, after the healers had confirmed they were physically fine. They were finger painting. With blood. The vampire guard who'd been watching them looked apologetic and terrified in equal measure. They seemed to want to create, my lady. I didn't have paint, so they improvised. Luna had painted what looked like a moon. Nyx had created shadows that moved across the paper independently. That's. I sat down heavily. We need to discuss boundaries, girls. And appropriate art supplies. And maybe therapy. Definitely therapy. Luna giggled and smacked her bloody handprint onto a fresh sheet of paper. Nyx clapped and shadows danced around her like pets. We're all going to need therapy, the guard muttered. My phone buzzed. A text from Cashin, coming home early. Heard about the attack. Are you hurt? I typed back with shaking hands, fine. Twins are fine. We need to talk about their powers. And maybe invest in a good child psychologist who specializes in supernatural hybrid children who can open portals to other dimensions. I'll make some calls. I looked at my daughters, covered in blood and paint and shadows and moonlight, and felt something fierce and protective and absolutely terrifying bloom in my chest. They were going to change the world. I just hoped the world survived it. Chapter 7. Cashin returned at dawn, materializing in the courtyard with 10 additional vampire warriors and an expression that could have frozen hell itself. I was in the garden with the twins, letting them practice their powers under controlled conditions. Which meant Luna was making flowers glow silver and Nyx was creating tiny shadow puppets that occasionally tried to eat the butterflies. Sarah. His voice was quiet. Deadly quiet. I turned, and the look on his face made my stomach drop. Cashin. Inside. Now. The twins went to a guard without argument. They'd learned to read Cashin's moods even better than I had. Once we were in his study, door closed, he rounded on me. You fought 50 wolves and purest forces with a skeleton crew. His voice was still terrifyingly calm. You put yourself in danger. You used powers you don't understand. You. I protected our children, I interrupted. What was I supposed to do? Let them take the twins while you were playing politics? You were supposed to wait for me. I didn't have time to wait. He was suddenly in front of me, hands on my shoulders, eyes blazing with something between fury and terror. If you ever fight without me again. You'll what? Brood at me? I shoved at his chest. Lock me in a tower? You don't get to control every aspect of my life just because we're bonded. I get to keep you alive. He pulled me closer, his forehead pressing against mine. Do you understand what it did to me? Getting reports of the battle, knowing I was too far away to help. Knowing you could have died and I wouldn't have been there. Oh. This wasn't about control. This was about fear. I'm fine, I said softly, my anger deflating. We're all fine. This time. His hands slid into my hair. Next time. There won't be a next time. There's always a next time with you. But his lips found mine, desperate and claiming, and I kissed him back with equal intensity. The mate bond hummed between us, satisfied, complete. We were still kissing when someone cleared their throat. Well, this is adorable and vaguely disturbing. We broke apart. An old woman stood in the doorway, ancient, actually, with wild gray hair and eyes that held centuries. She wore jeans and a t-shirt that said, "Witch, please," and carried a massive leather tome. Who are you? Cashin demanded, already moving protectively in front of me. Moira. The witch your people summoned to translate the prophecy. She shuffled in, dropping the tome on his desk with a heavy thud. Also, your security is terrible. I walked right in. You might want to address that. Cashin looked like he wanted to argue, but she was already opening the book. Let's skip the pleasantries because honestly, you two exhaust me and I haven't even been here 5 minutes. She flipped pages. The prophecy. The real one, not the watered-down version everyone quotes at parties. What does it say? I asked. Hybrid queens will unite all species or burn the world to ash. Born of ancient blood, awakened by forbidden bond, they will rule or ruin. She looked up. No pressure, kids. The room was silent. Queens? Cashin said finally. Plural? Your daughters. Moira pulled out popcorn from her bag, actual popcorn, and started eating. They're not just hybrids. They're the prophesied rulers. Lucky you. And the part about ancient blood? I asked, dreading the answer. Ah, yes. That. She studied me with those ancient eyes. You're not fully Omega, sweetie. You're descended from the first vampire-werewolf hybrid. The original. She was killed centuries ago by, let me check my notes, a Blackwater Pack Alpha. Dominic's great-great-whatever grandfather. The world tilted. What? Your bloodline was suppressed. Dormant. Probably some which did a binding spell generations back to hide you from people who wanted you dead. She gestured at Cashin. But then tall, dark, and broody here fed you his ancient vampire blood. Twice. And boom, awakening. I'm supernatural royalty, I said flatly. Basically, yes. And that's why the twins survived the blood exchange. Gold star for the newly minted hybrid queen. Moira ate more popcorn. Your bloodline recognized his. Old call to old. Made some impossibly powerful babies. Cashin was very still beside me. The councils. Oh, they're losing their minds. Moira grinned. Emergency sessions. Lots of panicking. The official decree is that the twins must be executed before their 18th birthday awakening, when their full powers manifest. No. My voice was flat. Final. Obviously no. Which brings us to the fun part. She pulled out another scroll. War. Lots of war. Every supernatural council against you two and your baby queens. Then we kill the councils first, Cashin said simply. I turned to him. That's your solution to everything. It's efficient. It's insane. It's practical. He crossed his arms. They want our children dead. We remove the threat. By committing genocide? By removing obstacles. Moira ate more popcorn, watching us like we were her favorite show. Y'all are like a toxic Hallmark movie. I love it. Please continue. We need a strategy, I said. A real one. Not just murder everyone. Why not? Cashin looked genuinely confused. We argued for an hour. Battle tactics, political maneuvering, possible allies. Moira provided commentary and finished her popcorn. Finally, Cashin held up a hand. Enough. He turned to face me fully. There's one way to strengthen our position. One way to bind our power together legally and politically. I had a sinking feeling I knew where this was going. Marry me. Not a question. A declaration. Cashin. Bind yourself to me completely. Let me protect you with every law, every power, every dark thing I am. His eyes burned into mine. Make it impossible for them to separate us, to divide our claim on the twins. That's the least romantic proposal ever. I don't do romance. I do obsession. He stepped closer. I do possession and protection and consuming devotion. Say yes. My heart was hammering. This is crazy. Yes. We've known each other less than a year. Yes. You're a vampire. I'm a hybrid. Our children are prophesied to either save or destroy the world. Yes. His hand cupped my face. Say yes, Sarah. I should have said no. Should have been rational. Should have thought it through. Yes. Moira clapped. Finally. I thought we'd be here all day. She stood, brushing popcorn crumbs off her jeans. I'll officiate. Got ordained online in the 1800s. Still valid. Now? I squeaked. No time like the present when multiple councils want your babies dead. She pulled out her phone. Let me just pull up the ceremony. I have it bookmarked. Cashin smiled. Actually smiled. I love efficiency. I'm marrying a sociopath, I muttered. Yes, he agreed, pulling me close. But I'm your sociopath. And somehow, impossibly, that was exactly right. Chapter 8. The wedding happened 3 days later under a blood moon, because apparently, we couldn't do anything halfway. The ceremony took place in the manor's courtyard, lit by floating candles that Moira swore weren't a fire hazard. Our guests were an eclectic mix: rebel vampires, rogue wolves, outcasts from every supernatural species who'd heard about the prophecy and decided they'd rather bet on the hybrid twins than the councils. I wore black. A gorgeous, Gothic gown that looked like it had been woven from shadows and starlight. Cashin had presented it to me that morning with the simple statement, "You're not a traditional bride." Why pretend? He wasn't wrong. The vows were dark. Blood oaths involving actual blood. Bone jewelry that Moira had somehow procured. Promises about till death and beyond that felt less romantic and more like a supernatural binding contract. Which, technically, it was. We're so unhinged, I whispered as Cashin slid a ring made of obsidian and silver onto my finger. And I wouldn't have it any other way, he murmured back, then kissed me hard enough to make several guests whistle. The twins, dressed in matching black dresses with their respective silver and red accents, clapped enthusiastically. Luna made the candles glow brighter. Nyx opened a small portal that released flower petals. At least she's using her powers for something cute this time, Victor's replacement, a vampire named Helena, muttered. The celebration was brief. We had a war to prepare for. 3 weeks later, we stood at the edge of Blackwater Lake. Full circle. Poetic justice. Our rebel army spread out behind us, hundreds of supernatural beings who'd chosen hope over hate. Across the lake, the purest forces gathered. Werewolves, some vampires who sided with tradition, and humans who'd somehow gotten involved. And at their center stood Dominic, looking like he thought he was leading some righteous crusade instead of a genocide. Last chance, Sarah, he called across the water. Come home. Bring the children. We can fix this. You tried to drown me here, I called back, my voice amplified by power. Now I'm going to drown your legacy. The battle began with a roar. It was brutal. Bloody. I fought alongside Cashin, our movements synchronized through the mate bond. He'd anticipate my strikes, I'd cover his blind spots. We were lethal together. I was carving through purest wolves when I felt it. A surge of ancient, twisted power that made my hybrid blood scream in warning. A woman emerged from the purest ranks. Beautiful, pale, with long black hair and eyes that held centuries of madness. She wore armor that looked medieval, stained with old blood. Cashin froze. Actually froze. Morgana, he breathed. The battlefield went quiet around us. Hello, my love, she purred, and her voice was silk over broken glass. Did you miss me? You're dead, Cashin said. You've been dead for 800 years. Dead? No. She laughed, and it sounded like breaking bones. I found ways to survive. Dark magic. Forbidden rituals. All so I could come back to you. Her eyes fixed on me with pure hatred. But you've replaced me. With a dog. You killed our child, Cashin said, his voice hollow. You went mad and murdered our son. He was weak. Like all children, demanding, needy. Her face contorted. But I've learned. I've planned. I'll have you back, Cashin, even if I have to kill every replacement. starting with this Omega bitch and her mongrel spawn. She moved faster than anything I'd ever seen. Her hand was around my throat before I could blink, lifting me off the ground. Cashin will tire of you, she hissed in my face. Just like he tired of all the others. I'm eternal. I'm his first. Cashin's sword went through her chest from behind. You're not my past, he said quietly, coldly. You're my madness. My damnation. My biggest mistake. He met my eyes over her shoulder. She's my future. Morgana screamed. Dark magic exploded outward. Cashin and I were thrown back, hitting the ground hard. We fought her together after that. She was powerful, ancient, insane. But we were bonded. Connected. Where she was chaos, we were synchrony. My claws. His blade. My Omega command forcing her to hesitate. His vampire speed exploiting every opening. It was brutal, intimate, a dance of death between three people bound by blood and time. Then the twins arrived. I don't know how they got past our defenses, but suddenly Luna and Nyx were there, holding hands, their eyes glowing, silver and red merging into something new. Something impossible. Light and shadow erupted from them in a wave that swept across the entire battlefield. It didn't destroy. It purified. Every supernatural being touched by that power felt it, corruption burning away, old hatreds dissolving, wounds healing. The purists dropped their weapons, confusion replacing zealotry. Even Morgana stopped fighting, the madness clearing from her eyes. Oh, she whispered, looking at her hands. Looking at Cashin. Oh gods, what did I do? You went mad, Cashin said quietly. A long time ago. Our son. Tears streamed down her face. I killed our son. I became a monster. Yes. The twins' power was still radiating outward. Morgana's form was becoming translucent, the dark magic that had sustained her finally breaking down. Thank you, she said, looking at me, at the twins. For giving him a second chance at happiness. For being what I couldn't be. She smiled, and for a moment, she looked sane. Whole. Protect them, little Omega. He'll drive you mad, but he'll never stop loving you. Then she faded to nothing. The battlefield was silent. Then, slowly, weapons were lowered. Purists looked at each other with dawning horror at what they'd nearly done. Species that had been enemies moments before were helping each other stand. The prophecy had been fulfilled. Not through violence, but through purification. The twins had proven species could coexist. Could be better. Dominic stood alone across the lake, his pack abandoning him one by one. He met my eyes, saw everything he'd lost, and fled into the woods. Let him go, Cashin said, his arm around my waist. Exile is a worse punishment than death for an alpha. He was right. 5 years later. Luna. Nyx. Stop teaching your brothers shadow walking. They're 3. I was in the kitchen, simultaneously making dinner and preventing our youngest from opening a portal to the demon realm. Again. Cashin appeared in the doorway, looking exhausted in a way I'd never seen before. Our 3 youngest, triplets, because my bloodline was apparently absurdly fertile, were hanging off him like adorable parasites. We should have stopped at 2, he said wearily. You said you wanted a dynasty, I reminded him, stirring pasta while one of the triplets tried to eat my hair. I've made a terrible mistake. Dad. Luna's voice echoed from upstairs. Nyx opened a portal to the demon realm again. They have puppies there. Nyx's voice protested. Those are HELLHUNDS, sweetie. I called back. We've discussed this. Cashin set the triplets down and crossed to me, pulling me into his arms despite the chaos. Still worth it? He asked quietly. I looked around our insane, impossible household. At our 5 hybrid children who were going to change the world. At the vampire who'd saved me from drowning and then drowned me in obsessive, possessive, all-consuming love. Every dark, chaotic, unhinged moment, I promised, kissing him. From the living room came the sound of something expensive breaking, followed by cheerful giggling. "I'll get it," Cashin sighed. "No, I'll get it. You get the hellhounds out of the portal." "Why is this our life?" "Because we're terrible at making good decisions." He laughed, actually laughed, and pulled me in for another kiss. Best terrible decision I ever made. And despite the chaos, the prophecies, the war we'd fought and the battles still to come, I had to agree. Some love stories were soft and gentle. Ours was blood and shadow and impossible choices. And I wouldn't change a single moment. The end. Thank you for listening to this story. Like, share and subscribe for more.